Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. Today we're going to do a character guide on Aranea. So Aranea is the last C90 character, so all of the C90 characters are done. So in this video we are going to talk about Aranea, like what she's kind of doing, what her artifacts and spheres do, and then we're going to look at her call here as well. The general overview of Aranea is that she is a damage dealer that really relies on the break-unbreak mechanic. She gets free turns, everything she does will break enemies, so she's a very good delay-based character, right? So if that's the kind of character you like, you might like Aranea. She's known for being like one of the most busted characters in the game on release because she was probably like, I don't know, I'd say 8 months ahead of her time on release. Very similar to like a Garnet and characters like that. She was an anniversary character, so they made her really, really busted, right? Ever since then, she's kind of just been okay. I think she's going to be kind of in a similar spot here. I think she's still good, but compared to other meta characters, I'd say she's just okay, right? But I'll kind of go through her kit, and you can judge for yourself how you feel about Aranea, right? So her calls aren't that great, to be honest. Her 15 CP high wind, the big thing that comes from this is she does put the Vital Crusher debuff on, which basically makes it so that enemies take more critical damage, and it guarantees that you crit the enemies. So that could be useful if you're in a pinch and you need crit. And then her LD literally has no effects. It just doesn't attack. So definitely not like a call that you want to bring. If you want crit damage, you're probably going to bring like Kate Sith is a much better call for that anyway. So if you're summoning for Aranea, you definitely want it for the character, right? So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll look at her artifacts here. Her artifacts are pretty easy. You just want Attack 108 and her C50, which is Miss Mercenary Boost. So we'll get Attack 108, and then her C50 passive does Int Brave, Max Brave, Attack and Defense by 5%, while her Overclock buff is active. And Overclock is basically one of her main gimmicks that we'll talk about as we get into the showcase. So that's the main one you want. Secondary could be Attack 108, Max Brave 330, right? Alright, so let's go look at her spheres. And for spheres, she's got 2 A slots and an E slot. Now I'm going to tell you this right now, my A slots are not optimal. Basically when Aranea came out, like, she was super busted, right? But this was before there was as much research done on spheres. I didn't personally know like what spheres are good for characters, but I loaded her up with like full spheres, so I don't want to take these off. But in the A slot, you want to do like attack or brave damage, right? And the one I'm going to shout out that's probably best in class, which I would put on her if I had room for it, would be King. King's is the biggest attack sphere in the game at 20%. It just requires that you break a target. Well, a character like Aranea, who has Rebreak in her kit, it's perfect for her, right? So King is really the sphere you want. If you want like to really max out your Aranea, you definitely want to use King, right? Now on her, I just have her own, which is just Int Brave and Max Brave up, which is okay, right? Like those are okay stats. And then I have Terra's on there, which is Int Brave and Max Brave. So for some reason back in the day, I did a lot of Int Brave and Max Brave. I think what I was looking at was more Terra's was a crit sphere, which Aranea is very good at because of Vital Crusher. And I did Aranea's own because it was her own, and back then I just thought if it's their own sphere, it must be good for them. And it's, once again, it's okay, but I would definitely trade those out for attack or brave damage spheres. Doing just Max Brave and I Brave probably isn't the best thing to put on Aranea. I would shout out something like Sphperes, like any of these attack Max Brave combos would be really good. Or like that really fat King. I think the King sphere would be the best, because that's just 20% attack is huge, right? So something like that, or like Jack, which has attack and brave damage on it. I would say any of those are going to be good. Aranea is doing range damage, so you could put a range damage sphere, so I think like Kane could be a pretty decent one there. So there's a lot of good options for the A slot, right? It's just look through your box, see what you have, put something on there. Now on the E sphere, there's definitely like opinions to be had here. So you could go with the typical like Yuffie Emperor type thing to go for attack, right? I'm a big fan of the Vanille Sphere. And Vanille Sphere, basically what it does is if you break an enemy, you erase one of their debuffs. And I think Vanille Sphere works really good on these Rebreak characters. So I personally, I'm a big fan of Vanille Sphere, so I went ahead and put Vanille on my Aranea. I think it's a great spot for it. I like the Vanille Sphere. Now, it's up to you to decide in today's game. I think some people would argue that this dispelling a single debuff per break isn't as necessary in today's game, and I can see that. But I still like having it there. I think it's a great spot for Vanille, but if you want to do the more traditional route, I think most players would say just go attack there in the E slot. But I personally am a big fan of Vanille. I like the idea that Aranea basically on demand can wipe out debuffs, or sorry, wipe out enemy buffs, because she has so much on-demand breaking, she can just do it constantly. So I like Vanille on Aranea personally. So let's go ahead, we'll hop into a showcase. Now, I have the Lufenia Armor Plus, I haven't blued it, but I do have an Ultima weapon on. And I will say this, I did skip Aranea, so I'll just do my free daily singles on her, maybe I'll get lucky and get the FR. But that's all I'm doing, so I don't have her FR. But in terms of damage, like, my Aranea is going to be fine because I've got the Ultima weapon on, which is actually going to have more stats than the FR. So the only thing we're missing is that in the actual FR phase, which I'll talk about during the showcase, right? And just explain what that does. So let's go ahead and hop in. And we're just going to do a typical Rem Luna Freya setup just to give her turns, make her look good. Sure, I can bring in a selfie friend. I probably won't use it. Since I don't have Aranea's FR and I'm not showing it, I don't need to like rush into an FR phase, right? I'll just try to get her a lot of turns. Try to make her look good here, right? Okay. Let's see who's going first here. Alright. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a quick prayer on Aranea, just to give her a bunch of turns. And then we will go ahead and, sure, I'll just pop the BT effect and make her look good, right? So the first thing you're going to notice on Aranea is she does have an overhead. The overhead is called Magitech Lance, and it does start at 6 turns. This does attack up, HP damage up, and eye brave up, okay? The big thing that the Magitech Lance does is basically any of her attacks will unbreak the target. So this comes from having her LD. So just as long as she has her overhead, any attack she does, could be an HP plus, could be a 35, a 15, they're all going to unbreak the enemies. So Aranea is literally just constantly breaking all the time, right? So let's swap into Aranea here, get these 3 turns. So the way that you want to start with Aranea is she's one of these break free turn characters. So the way that these work is if you break, you get a free turn. And then when you're on the free turn, you can't do it back to back. But if you interrupt the turn with something, you can do it again. So what you would do to start is you literally could just pick any attack to get a break. And so let's go ahead and just do like High Wind, the 35 here. Now this is the non-plus version, but it will break. Okay. And then it's going to go up. And then what's going to happen is when we break, we're going to get the plus versions of our skills. Okay. So here's what happens. She operates off of her overclock buff. And so right now we just got 4 turns of overclock. So basically what overclock does is it just gives her attack up and an overflow stolen up, which doesn't seem that crazy, but she gets like the plus versions of all of her skills from having overclock. Okay. Basically overclock will come from the skill 1, the skill 2, or the EX if you break the enemy. And skill 1 and skill 2, you have to break the enemy with the base version, and then you get the plus version. The plus version does not refresh overclock. The big one that they did was on the EX. It used to be that with the EX, but now the EX will actually give 2 turns of overclock. If you already have it, it'll up it by 2 turns. So that's really, really good. So we'll talk about that. So basically the attack we just did was called High Wind. High Wind, her 35 is basically her AoE attack. And then Dragoon Dive is more single target. We'll talk about Dragoon Dive when we do that. But basically, and High Wind always unbreaks, even if you don't have the overhead. That was something it always did. So even if you don't have the overhead, that will unbreak. Does the big AoE attack. We get 4 turns of overclock when we break, as long as it wasn't the plus version. And then this does apply the Vital Crusher debuff. The Vital Crusher debuff is one of Aranea's good qualities that she has, or something that she's known for. Enemies with Vital Crusher, you always crit them with any character, and it increases the crit damage that you do. This is very useful against enemies that don't allow crit damage, or that like the enemies that can't be broken. Because the easiest way to get crit damage is attacking a broken enemy. In some fights where enemies can't be broken, it's hard to crit. So getting Vital Crusher in those situations is really nice. Although I don't know if I'd recommend running Aranea in a fight where enemies can't be broken, because that's like what her kit revolves around, right? But what I would do is after you do that first free attack, then I would go ahead and probably just pop into LD. So let's do the LD. This is Vermilion Assault. We'll see what kind of damage we get here. I'm kind of curious on her damage. Okay, so about 900k AoE. It's pretty good for an LD, right? Or it's pretty, it's pretty standard, pretty par for the course. So that does that big AoE attack. She does get a free ability use on the next turn, which you can see as triggered right there. And then it does apply overclock. So if she didn't have overclock, you can guarantee get it with that. And then it gives her 14 turns of her overhead. So you can see that overhead went up to 14. So that's very good. So now we're just like set for a while. And now you can basically just press whatever buttons you want based on the situation, right? So what we'll do here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit enemy B, and we're going to do Dragoon Dive plus. So the big thing that this does, it's a single target delay. So watch the damage here. Yeah, about a mil. That's good damage, right? And then it gives a 2-turn delay, right? And since we broke, we got a free turn. So basically, I can show you how this combo works. We could do set overclock, which is the AA, and this basically will give you your overclock buff. So if you just need to get that on the spot, you can do that. Now we've got a free turn, so I could say go ahead and high wind again, or we could even just use like the fifth, you know, like an HP plus, which this will also break. Like literally everything breaks, right? Now the damage not very good there. You really don't have to use her HP plus anymore. It used to be back in the day that was important because you would run out of skill uses. But in today's game, you don't really need to use it. But just to show you, even the HP plus can break, and then we stole a free turn. I could do it again. I could just, once again, with these steal turn characters, as long as you break up the free turn with a different action, you could jump in and you could break again, and you could steal another turn. So I could do like the plus version of high wind here. And I could hop in and do that, right? And then about 580k with a little bit of splash. That's okay-ish, but not the craziest, right? So now Aranea's got the EX up, so we definitely want to see that. So let's go ahead and swap into her and get the EX. Now let's see what my overclock is looking like. My overclock should be at, I think it's at 3 right now, which sounds about right. Okay, so let's see here. Yep, overclock is at 3. Now this is one of the big upgrades we got with the C90, right? So it used to be that the EX, you never wanted to press it on the plus version, because the way it used to work was only the non-plus version gave you overclock back, and it was a free way to refresh your overclock. Now they've kind of fixed that so that you want to get the plus version, because now what'll happen is the plus version doesn't like give you 4 turns of overclock, but what it does is if you already have overclock, it'll up it by 2 turns, which is really, really awesome. So now you have a reason to want to use the plus version. So let's go and do the plus version of the EX, and this should do very good damage because she just got her C90, so it's just got a major upgrade. Let's see what the damage looks like here. Yeah, about 775k AoE. That's pretty good damage, right, for AoE. I think in AoE fights, Aranea is actually putting up pretty decent damage. I think single target, you know, Tifa's going to put her to shame, right? But the EX we just did, so we just saw that big full damage HP attack. She gets 6 turns of a buff called High Speed Maneuver. Basically, this is going to just give her crit damage up, so extra 50% crit damage, but this buff is what makes her get the free instant turns when she breaks. So you want to make sure you upkeep that. I would say her EX is one of her better moves, so you typically just want to press it when it's up. And then once again, our overclock, it increased the stacks on it. So you can see overclock now went from 4 to 6, which is very, very good. Now we have a reason to press that and keep our overclock going. When you're playing Aranea, you pretty much want to always have overclock going. You usually don't want that to fall off. You want to keep the full versions of your moves. And then once again, I could go ahead and high wind for a double break here, which essentially is a delay, right? So it'll pop them both back. Oh, that was only single target. Okay, so it's only single target on the Brave damage, but then AoE splash, right? And then Rem, let's go and swap back into Aranea again. But that's basically her kit, right? Now, we do still need to talk about the FR, so we can kind of talk through that. The reason why Aranea just, like, isn't crazy right now is you can see these damage numbers are fine. But, like, she's definitely outclassed by characters like Tifa and Renoa, right? So she's definitely not necessary. Let's do another Dragoon Dive here. So, I mean, yeah, like, a mil damage with 2-turn delay, like, that's good. So, like, she's not bad. Like, these are good things. These are good numbers. It's just the power creep is there, right? And so when we're talking about her FR, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but just before I start talking about Aranea's actual FR herself, I'll just attack through as I talk about this. But just the reason why I would say I don't really recommend Aranea right now is she's actually anti-synergetic. She's anti-synergetic with the force gauge in general as a mechanic, right? Because Aranea's deal is that she's not doing as much per turn as like some of these other damage dealers, but the idea with Aranea is you're supposed to steal turns, get free turns, and then you combine the damage from the 2 turns, and then yeah, she's doing a lot of damage, right? Because if I take my Dragoon Dive and I do that twice, that's like a 2 million damage, right? And I did 1 on my actual turn and 1 on a free turn, so you can say like per turn count, her damage is really good. The problem is with force gauge, it doesn't care about if it's a free turn or not. So it's literally, you just get 10 actions. And so for Aranea, per action, you're not outputting the damage that like a Tifa or a Renoa is going to do during force time, right? So once again, that's why Aranea might seem really, really good, but it's just she doesn't work as well in the force time. She's a character that you typically don't want around for force time, because if I'm, say, running on a Tifa or a Renoa burst, I just want them to take all the actions. And if Aranea happens to get a turn, she can't avoid breaking. Like, she's gonna break. and then she's going to steal a turn, and now she's eating up 2 turns of your force time, right? That being said, she's going to be fine with her own force effect, right? And she's going to be doing good. And it's not that she can't tick other force effects, right? Like, she's going to be able to tick many force effects just fine. It's just that she's not going to be the highest damage dealer compared to other characters you'd want to use, right? So her force effect is called, what is it called? Sphperes to be well? I think that's how you pronounce it. So that's going to be a big AoE attack, right? And then... So her FR effect is her breaks will delay 1 turn longer. So her breaks now are going to be 2 turn delays, which is actually pretty good, right? And then it's going to do a party HP damage limit up, and it's going to increase crit damage. So that's pretty good. It is going to give her overclock, so even if you don't have overclock, you'll get that back from the force time. And then it is going to apply Vital Crusher to the enemy. So it's basically, you press it, she's going to have all the stuff that she wants in her kit ready to go, right? The big thing is her HP damage bonus conditions, which are pretty good. Like, they're pretty easy to meet. So the one thing I will give her is her force effect is a very flexible one. So the first one is any delay or a break is going to be 40%. So literally you could pair her with, like, say, Cloud of Darkness or Quistis. So characters that just have built-in delay, or just any character that can break or unbreak. So like Zidane or Lightning, characters like that, right? So any break or delay will do 40%. So as long as you bring her with characters that can on-demand either delay or break or unbreak, you're going to always get the 40%, which is pretty good, right? And then basically, if you do critical brave damage, it's another 30%. Well, if you're running Aranea, the enemies are going to have Vital Crusher on, so that is just for free. So basically, any character that breaks or delays, you're getting 70%. So it's like not a bad force time, right? It's like a very good one. It's just like, if I'm bringing in a force time damage dealer to a fight, I'm going to bring DFFOO. So the only reason you would really want to go for Aranea right now, the only way I could recommend her, is if you're just like a character that for some reason skipped those, or you're brand new and you just need a damage dealer right now. Sure, Aranea is fine, but here's the thing. Very beginning of January, very end of Christmas, we got Jack Garland coming. And he's going to be another, offensive powerhouse beast. So I'd say if you don't have Tifa or Rinoa, if you can survive without Aranea, I would just save your resources for Jack Garland, right? So anyways, guys, there you go. There is the character guide on Aranea. She's very simple, easy character to play. Bottom line is keep your overclock upkept. Basically choose between whether you want to delay or do more AoE damage. But you're always going to be breaking on every attack. Pop that EX when it comes up. It's very good. But that's basically it. So anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.